All right, Johnette, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to start this interview like I start all the interviews. Tell us something about you that is not on your bio. Your two-page bio. I got to keep telling everybody, y'all bios are so long.
We try to condense those because the one pager is really good, but I try to be more specific to the topic today outside of my other many experiences. Let's say that.
Well, you
So,
been longer.
something about that is not in my bio is that I am a pseudo gourmet cook, right? I love culinary arts. I dabble in it all the time. It is cathartic in many cases for me. So I really love it. I love doing it. It's something that's come naturally over the years. And so yeah, that's something else about me. That
I'm
is
going to
not it.
endorse your food. I would take the word pseudo off and just go ahead and claim it, gourmet cook. Go ahead and claim that because I'm
Get
going
in
to
there.
take that off
Get
of
in
there.
there. My one of my side I would say hopes um during retirement is to actually take some culinary classes and then do a side business doing maybe some private chef deal. But yeah, it's something that I'd love to do.
Well, I would definitely hire you. I'm gonna shift a little bit, but before I shift, I want you to talk about your military experience because that's one of the main reasons we have you on.
So my military experience is extensive for the past 20, almost 25 years now. The all gamuts of the armed forces, whether that is reserve, active duty, AGR. But I have done clinical practice for several years. And for the topic today, with some behavioral health rotations, as well as I've led a BHIP team, a behavioral interdisciplinary team, the launch of that for the Department of Veterans Affairs. And that in itself is an initiative that brings the holistic health um, dynamic into mental health and behavioral health services for veterans, active duty service members, alike. And it allows for a team effort to codify the treatment from active service and to their veteran status as well. So there is generally a psychiatrist, a pharmacist, PharmD, a counselor, a health administration person, and then a scheduler that even promotes their care, whether that is in-house or in the actual medical facility, or if we need to provide external care in the community for those that can't get treatment within 30 days. The goal is to have treatment and a scheduled treatment within 30 days of reporting or requesting help.
Okay. Now I'm gonna ask you to back all the way up for us regular folks and
Mhm.
explain some of those terms. So, because I think oftentimes, especially today being Memorial Day, a lot of people will say, thank you for your service to a person, such as yourself. We don't understand the difference between a veteran, active duty, enlisted officer. So kind of help us out real quick.
So one of the things I'm actually wearing my memorial service shirt, and I have to caution folks that aren't in the military in saying Happy Memorial Day because Memorial Day is a day of reverence for those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, those that have not come back from war. So when we talk about active duty members, those are service members that are actually serving currently. They are on active duty. That's what their job is. They do it every day. Reserves are those that are called up in times of war or times of need for the country, and they're called in by the federal government. They typically serve 1 week in a month, as you hear on a commercial, 1 week in a month, two weekends, 2 weeks a year. But in terms of conflict, they can be called up to active service. Veterans are those that have come off active duty. So those that are retirees that have served their tour of duty, whether that is their contract be 4 years, 2 years, that's variable depending on the service you're in and whatever your contract is. And so yeah, that runs the gamut of what service members are.
And I think there's a lot of confusion among, again, us regular folks. There was another question, and I asked this to someone, and they said, I don't know the answer, so I'm gonna ask it to you as well. For Memorial Day, is it all service members who have died while in active duty, or just those who died in combat?
It's all service members that
Okay.
have died. So you're paying reverence and respect. Those that have died, of course, ultimately played the ultimate sacrifice in active service. But those that are, it's memorial for those that have passed on. They've given, their lives honorably, and they're buried, in the national cemetery. Those that have been awarded a flag for their service. So yes, those are the POWs that we haven't recovered, but it is to pay respect for those that have not returned.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And I think I just wanted to make sure we all were aware, and definitely take note. No more Happy Memorial Day. Obviously, day
But
off of.
the day is to honor the fallen. And the one thing I'll go, and we talked about what I was not in my bio. My original tour of duty with the Army was I was a mortuary affairs specialist. So I worked in this, I guess, dynamic very closely with fallen soldiers, and ensuring that their remains were handled correctly and presented to their families. And I did several graveside services and presenting the flag to their families. So it means I won't say more to me, but there's a special place for me when it comes to Memorial Day and memorializing soldiers that have paid the ultimate sacrifice.
You have a different level of understanding because of how you participated in it.
Quite.
So
I and I'm also Pisces, so it was very touching. I got very ingrained in the ceremonies, and it was very moving. It's always moving with the families. Yes.
And so, like I said, I'm gonna shift a little bit now that we have, and thank you for educating us. And we're gonna continue to try to educate ourselves. But I'm gonna give you statistics that you probably already know. So this is more for the listeners than it is for you. But that major depression is 5 times higher in people who have served in the military. PTSD is 15 times higher in people who have served in the military. More than 30,000 military members have committed suicide since 2001, which is 4 times higher than those that were killed in combat since 2001. And again, because of what you do, you probably aren't surprised at the statistics, but for me, very surprised. And the other statistic that surprised me was that active duty service members have much less reported mental health issues than the general public. So these numbers are all after service. Do you have any thoughts of why that would be?
I can definitely attest to why that is, because there's a stigma in the military about mental health and mental health issues. It is frowned upon for that to be a part of your service. Many are ostracized. There is reprisal in many cases. So it is not a favorable thing to reveal or to seek treatment. Now, the cover story will be everyone needs treatment. We provide treatment, and those things are true.
Mhm.
But the culture itself, especially for those that are in leadership, it is frowned upon. I can speak for myself and in my own experience. Coming back home from my last deployment, I was having issues not being able to sleep, high anxiety, the whole, can't sleep, can't sit with my back towards things.
Mhm.
Always, I started having panic attacks, all of those things. And I went to counseling to just get something for sleep, right?
Mhm.
And upon arrival, I was given a MME, mental evaluation, and was told by the provider at that time, he was like, "You have PTSD." And I immediately said, "No, I don't."
Okay.
And and don't put that in my record.
Mhm.
Not looking at the sequelae that comes with that, but more in the fact that I was in command.
Right.
Uh, and that is not something that I could have taken back to my commander to say, I have an issue and I can't lead.
Right.
That is not something that you do. So my care, and I'll be quite honest, was diagnosis is something similar to that as a distributing thing, but it was not put in. I did not want that put in my record
Mhm.
because you would be deemed to be inadequate. And as a soldier, an officer, a leader that for the better part of my career was in charge of ensuring the safety of my soldiers, I couldn't take that hit. And I wasn't going to allow myself to take that hit. So reporting um, the numbers, I believe, are skewed.
Recorded. Mm.
That in most cases, even the numbers that you have right now statistically are probably much lower than what they should be, as far as reporting is concerned. I think it's getting better now,
Mhm.
um, with the I would hasten to say younger generation of soldiers and service members, because there's more of an awareness now.
Mhm.
But for us seasoned soldiers, it's a stigma, and you're not going to get away from that. It is a stigma of leadership. You are not, as a leader, to have any ailment or anything that's going to preclude you to be ready and always ready. Choose your prey, but always ready to go. So yeah.
As a provider, would you allow your client, patient, to argue with you about their diagnosis? The same way you said you
I would not, but there's a common thing that says providers are the worst patients. I
apparently
not.
so.
He did his due diligence
Mhm.
and reported it anyway. Um, but I was not happy about that. And it wasn't the provider in me, it was the soldier in
Right.
me, because I knew what the possible repercussions of that diagnosis would be, whether that would be removal from a leadership position, or what else could come of that, because I knew what the stigma was surrounding that diagnosis. um
Mhm. But I'm
did I
hearing internal. I
Yes.
I was gonna say I'm hearing an internal battle because the mental health professional in you knew what help you needed.
Yes, and it's the reason why I sought help.
Mhm.
I had been through the gambit of trying to uh, self-diagnose, self-treatment,
Mhm.
my own coping mechanisms, which many people turn to, especially military personnel. You talk to your friends, you have some drinks,
Mhm.
and it should go away, but it does not. The scariest time for me, when I knew that I needed to get myself into treatment, was at my sister's graduation. And most people don't know this, but I had a panic attack, and it was bad. Um, and the whole time, I was more embarrassed that it was happening than trying to figure out why it was happening or trying to solve it, because it happened so quickly, and it was it was sudden. Um, and in that moment, I knew that this was something that I had to address.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
but
once, like you said, once it's kind of like spilling out into your life where you weren't able to hide it anymore, and that's what happens with the traumas of just anybody, not specifically military. They interfere with your day-to-day life, and you can't keep hiding it and tucking it in.
yeah, because you can functionally, I mean, functionally, I again, as a leader, you have to be on point. So
Mhm.
day to day, my day-to-day encounters, I could not show weakness um, because of my position. And so it was more of my closet interactions, late at night, of course,
Mhm.
couldn't sleep, and trying to deal with it then. But then, when it became apparent and there was no control in it, then yeah, definitely, I had to take a step back and go and actually get um, some recurring help. And even then, I did not go through the regular military channels. I went through an Army One Source, right? So One Source provides, and if there's any veterans listening or any active service, they provide 10 counseling sessions.
12.
And these counselings are outside of your command, right? So my initial counseling for what was going on with me took place outside of my
Mhm.
immediate command or leadership knowing anything about it. But it gave me an advent to actually get the needed services that I so needed at the time, and to be free without fear of you know, reprisal or anything like that. But 10 free counseling sessions. Once I got that and got comfortable with it,
Mhm.
then I was able to actually start going, and advise my commander what was going on.
And
And
so,
then understanding that a lot more people were
right,
dealing with the same thing.
right. And so Military One Source is available to all the branches. I am
Yes.
one of the listed. So as a civilian, I'm a provider to Military One Source. And one of the things I have to, and because you receive those services, is it's not the same confidential counseling that everyone else outside of the military gets. Because I do have to write a billing report that includes 3 sentences about what we talked about.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so, and that is to me, when I first started doing that, it was conflictual, like what happened to confidentiality. But in order for the member to get the free visits, they have to sign a waiver saying that I'm going to give those. And it's not your notes. So anybody who's listening, it's not your psychotherapy notes, but it's 3 sentences that explains what happened in the course overall. I've gotten really good at writing those 3 sentences in a way that meets the requirements but doesn't disclose. But I think in the beginning there was that battle for me as a provider of, wait, what does the military want to know for those sessions?
Well, it is, and I've had to write those notes myself. Um, but it is to have something in the record,
Mm-hmm.
that the soldier actually, or the service member, I'll keep saying soldiers because it's just inherent in me. But that service member actually sought treatment,
Right.
and that there is a chronicle of it. So in the event that they come off duty, or in the event that something, tragically happens, there's a record that substantiates that this person was in treatment or sought treatment for this issue.
Right.
And that is crucial to follow on care once that person during service, but essential to care once they're out of active duty service, so they're a veteran, a retiree, or something like that.
But no one
So
else's job requires that. So the military, because I
yes.
do, the military is the only job that requires that level of information. And so that, do you think some people are still hesitant, even though that's outside of the military, to get
I
care?
believe I believe they are. Um, and I also understand that some people go into what we call community care, and that is outside as well. Now, that has to be reported on a certain level, but is not to the extent where I'm going to counseling while I'm on duty, and I gotta, tell my command, hey, I
Mhm.
gotta go to the doctor. You don't have to reveal this stuff. Don't. I don't want there to be some uh preponderance of belief that, oh, you got to reveal this, or because you put these notes in there that it's revealed. You don't have to reveal this stuff. But when, even in me, and I can use myself as an example, as a commander, to go into the facility, when I would go into the facility, folks would think that I was there for other reasons, not that I was there as a patient.
Right. Right.
Then the talk goes on, and the backdrop goes on, all of those things. So I had to remain cognizant of when I went, who I saw, and those things, which again, spurred my initial advent to seek help outside of the facility, the main facility on post. But yeah, I think that is definitely always going to be a deterrent. It's always going to be a deterrent. And then some people just, you don't want to feel, there's such a stigma with mental health that it makes you feel like something is wrong with you. And as a service member, as a leader, as a fighter, that's not something that a lot of us want to accept.
Right.
But in our regular, I won't say regular because that's outside of the norm for regular people. I would say that regular
regular, but I know what you mean.
You are so conditioned to deal with stressors and even trauma on a different level than the average, or I can't say regular, I want to say civilian, but those outside. Our day-to-day movements, our day-to-day operations, our day-to-day life is markedly different than what an external person outside the military would have to endure. So our coping mechanisms to that trauma, again, is going to be markedly different than what someone else is, because they're not exposed to what we're exposed to, and they don't have to internalize it. I shared with my sister here recently that I've learned to stop building bridges and start building board, right? So I need to stop building bridges and start building those borders. I need to okay, where someone is going to be in my life, right? How am I going to let that experience play in my life and in my day-to-day operations? Where initially you're always taught, here is a colloquialism we all are taught. It's your mind. It's mind over matter. It's your mind, and it does not matter. Okay. So you get over it and you keep going because that's what you're trained to do. But the aftermath of that is difficult for different people to process, because we're going to always process things in a different way depending on our own life experiences. And what I can get my mind to overcome, other people cannot.
So let me ask you a question, because most people join the military in their late adolescence, very early adulthood. I don't know the age cutoff of how old you can be to join, but it's pretty young to me, because now that I'm older.
Surprisingly, it's actually 40, depending on where you are.
40?
Yeah.
Still pretty young. It's
40,
still pretty young to me, because I'm not, because I've passed that. So I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But most people join in their late adolescence, early adulthood. And so there's a saying that I've heard, again, I have no military experience, except being a military mom, is that the military breaks you down to build you back up. What happens when they break you down if they don't build you back up?
You have issues. That is a saying, and in most cases, that is the overarching belief when you come into service, is that they're going to break you down systemically, challenge you to be your best you, right? that does not happen for everyone. And I recently watched some older military movies, Full Metal Jacket, all of those things, where you have those outliers and those people that do not adjust
Hmm.
to military lifestyle. They don't. Functionally, mentally, physically, they cannot adjust. For the majority of people, that is exactly what happens.
Okay.
Um, and there is a benefit. And I tell people, share as you share on my socials all the time. If everything was great, then you wouldn't be here,
Mm.
right? But while you're here, make it great, right?
Okay.
Get the most out of this experience that you can, whether that is a degree, some training, some technical knowledge, something that is going to set you up for success when you leave. um, the military itself, the mindset is to take everyone, any Joe Blow off the street, and everyone is on the same playing field.
Mhm.
And we are going to make you all the same, and then we're going to have you excel. Um, Again, the dynamic itself is a good dynamic. Let's just say that.
So it
It's a
sounds like
good
a good.
methodology. It
It
is
just
a good
sounds like a good
methodology.
theory, but and the reason I bring up that mostly young people, that's before you really know yourself. So I think that could work really well for an adult who really knows themselves, who are grounded in their truth. You can break
Well,
down the foolishness and build me back up. But a young person who doesn't know who they are could easily get lost. Their sense of development could easily get altered.
some of them do, but generally the age of coming in is around, I would say, 19, between 19 and 21.
Hmm.
So at that point, um, the majority of people aren't, or the majority of those coming in aren't lost. They're looking for some direction.
They are
Um,
lost.
and
That's exactly what I'm saying. They're already lost when they come in.
they are looking for they get some direction and they get some focus, and a lot of them need that. For me, I came in older. Um, I was already in college.
Wasn't that much
And
older.
so the child, it really wasn't.
I was say, I know you. You
My
were 19 to
challenge,
20 at the
yeah,
most.
I'm 21, but
No, you wasn't.
2021 is
No, you
when I got
wasn't.
out of basic training. But
I was gonna say you
my
wasn't 21
challenge,
when you joined in.
no, it was 20. So no, it was 20 when I joined it, because I was in my sophomore year at LSU. So yeah, I
Like,
was 20. But and yeah, I drank the Kool-Aid. Oh, just come in for a few months and we're gonna pay for college. And yeah, 20 years later. But what I will say is, for me, um, I saw and I was witness and privy to a lot of those soldiers, my fellow service members, my battles that needed that direction, and I did as well.
mhm.
Um, for me, I was mentored by my sergeants, and they spurred leadership potential in me that I didn't see in myself. Um, that I felt defeated in some cases. I wanted to go home. I didn't want to be there. This was,
Mhm.
da 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 da. And one of them came to me one day. He was like, you know what, you're a leader. And if you would just open your eyes, you would see that these people are following you. Your soldiers, your fellows, your battles are following you.
Mhm.
And you need to lead by example. And from that point on, took it and ran with it. That became my moniker. That became who I was. Again, everyone is not equipped for that. And we know our children, this younger generation,
We're not gonna pick
um,
on our babies. We're not gonna pick
they
on. They're different
I'm
and
not
they're ugly.
picking on them at all. What I'm saying is it takes a different, I just saw a meme or something here recently that said you can't raise your kids the way you were raised, because that doesn't exist anymore. Everyone that comes in, and I have one of my daughter's little best friends right now is a drill sergeant right now. I'm very proud of her. But they have to tailor how their interaction is with the incoming soldier, right? So you again, those incoming, like we talked about, myself coming in, those age groups coming in, they are different. And so you have to tailor how you're going to lead them, how you're going to motivate them, how you're going to train them in a different fashion than when I came in. They're more high tech and all of this stuff. But outside of that, how are you going to engage them as a person?
Right.
And then motivate them. We're talking about the breakdown and the build up. Breaking down is not synonymous with something bad. I don't want, that's what I don't want to be projected.
Okay.
Breaking down, I think, gets you to, or those service members, to a level of understanding that we are all the same. So everyone is on the same playing field, right? Whether you come in and you're extremely talented, you're extremely strong, you may have technical knowledge, but we're all being broken down to the same basic level of service. Then once we get that understanding, then we understand that everyone, because when you get to that level of understanding, then everyone becomes a team player, right? So I'm not looking at that person. I know that I can rely on them to at least this basic level of skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we can play upon those attributes that are inherent in those individuals. What makes you great? Let's promote that. So that's where the building up comes from.
And so I'm glad you broke that down, because as an outsider, my thought was, when especially looking at just the raw statistics, what is causing military members to have more mental health problems than the general public? One of my thoughts was that process of breaking down and building up. And
I
you said
don't
no, you don't think that has anything to do with it, because that is an intentional
know
positive.
that. Yes, that is intentional. That is an intentional dynamic of military service. What I don't also want to not have missed, and or that to be an understanding, is those persons or service members are coming in again with those different experiences. I've counseled service members that, in all honesty, I was concerned about, from a host, a dynamic, the diaspora of mental
Mhm.
issues, that they just shrugged off like it was nothing. And to me, I was like, wow,
Okay.
are you okay? I'm concerned about myself, but these people like really have some things that need to be addressed. But they bring a lot of that in with them. So
Mm-hmm.
when you couple that with what their experience is going to be in a military lifestyle, right? Now it's a standardized lifestyle. It is, the pomp and circumstance, but it's also the rigor of defending a nation. Um, and you trying to balance that with regular life, because once you get off your regular your job, whatever that is, now you go home and
Mm-hmm.
you have to shift and become something else for someone else.
Right.
For me, it was, I decided years ago that I would never pick up my child in uniform. So when I got off of work, I would take my uniform off, my battle gear, I would take that off, put on whatever, gym clothes, something, and then go and pick her up from school, because she wasn't looking for Captain Dillon, Major Dillon. She was looking for a mommy.
Right.
So there's that dynamic as well, because once you deal with the rigors of military service, you now have to go back and become that internal person that everyone else is drawing their strength from as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes sometimes overwhelming. And then again, you have to look at how that person and what their lifestyle was prior to coming into service. Some people aren't adequate in necessarily making that transition, and they need more help to get them through that transition. And you get some that are so systemically ingrained in military culture, when it's time to leave that culture for whatever reason, whether it's medical, retiring, or whatever, they can't adjust to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a socialized system that they become so ingrained in. It is their entire identity. So then you switch them off to the cue of, now you're going to be regular Joe Blow. What I mean, I've talked to several people that just have a breakdown. What am I to do? Who am I now?
Mm-hmm.
I've not been. This is who I am. I'm Sergeant so and so. I'm Officer so and so. No, I'm just Johnette. What does that mean?
But
When for 2 years of my life, I've been who you told me to be. Um, it's reminiscent to a conversation I had with one of my soldiers. I asked him, he wanted to get out. I said, okay, it's, the military life is not for everybody. You serve honorably. What are you going to do? And his response was, oh, I drive tanks. Son, when's the last time you saw a tank rolling down the street? Now we need to have an honest conversation. If you want to get out, let's start this backwards planning from sergeant tank driver to, Clarence, the truck driver or whatever you have, but your aspirations to do. Utilize this time now
right.
to understand what your identity is going to be when you leave this installation. And for a lot of people, they don't have that transition. I've been an ACAP 3 times. As I said, I've been reservist, HGR, active duty 3 times. In my last one, the transition counselor that was hosting the counseling, because they do transition counseling for you before you come off service. And one of the things she asked was, who has a job already lined up? Who has a degree? Who has a plan? Who has financially planned for this transition? And I was in awe at how many people could not answer that question. And those people that had families and were dependent upon them. So think about that, encompassing all of that bubble. It definitely is going to weigh on you mentally.
Like I said, that's one thing I think you've always done well is because I've never met you as a soldier. As long as we've been knowing each other, I've seen the pictures, but when you come for vacation, you were always vacation mode. You know what I mean? And you had like you have hobbies and you have developed your other talents the whole time you were in the military. You never neglected yourself and personal development. And so I think that helps buffer some of this.
I think so. I think that going in, um, it was always a means to an end. I was good because I strived to be my best in everything that I did.
Mhm.
So whether that was being a soldier, whether that was being a parent, I understood that there was going to be life after, right?
Right.
We all get the counseling. You all, like I'm talking, speaking to some soldiers, but we all get the counseling. And I always would look up my officer record, and it would always be a mandatory removal date, right?
Mhm.
That says that at that date, you would no longer be serving. So I would always say, okay, what do I need to have in line when this day comes that will ensure that I am taken care of? So whether that was, oh, okay, they're doing this program, let me go to school. Oh, this program allows loans to be repaid back. Okay, let me check this box.
Mhm.
And I never wanted to project that with my friends because I drew my mental health, my stability from you guys, from being around and being surrounded with love. Because my service, there was love. I always have love for my fellow service members. I always have love, especially for my soldiers. I love them to death. But that is not, it is not comparable to my internal interactions with those that I grew up with, that I
Right.
have that foundation with. So when I saw y'all, it was like an avenue to exhale, right?
Mhm.
To get that out and just to be free and to be happy, where I didn't have to always have the stoic face on. I
Right.
didn't have to, like right now, not talk using my hands, or I didn't have to always make the hard and the tough decisions that what was a part of my day-to-day experience, and you guys never experienced it. I never wanted you to. So when I see people sometimes and they're like, you in the military, you in service, and then they'll see some of our pictures that are you know, online, briefings and things like that, and the face and the story. That is culture. That
Right.
is culture. But it was not who Johnette was, and I never wanted to lose who I was internally. You know, especially to my family and friends. So now it's I will say amusing
Mhm.
that my fellow service members, they're able to see me outside of that dynamic, outside, and they still, don't get me wrong, now they still see ma'am, they still see me as that person, because I always cared. I would tell them, and they would always share that my edict was always, I'm firm but I'm fair.
Mhm.
um, in my decision making. I always try to ensure, above all, their safety and the safety of their family members. But you have to make tough decisions, and those, they have to view you with, through that lens, right? Of being that leader, of having that respect, of having that authority. Because if they didn't, then it could cost lives. And I never wanted that to be on my shoulders. But for you guys, I wanted love. I wanted peace. I
And
wanted fun. I wanted all the things that I could not have at work, because I couldn't be that person.
and so there's no real good segue to add to this next question, so I just have to ask it without a segue. But being a black woman in the military, how did that play a part in your mental health experiences?
That's hard. Um, I would always, and I still say, being a black woman in the military, and even in corporate life, you're a double negative, right? Um, I've shared with folks around me that I didn't really experience um, racism, sexism, bigamy, all of those social uh, issues until I got into military service. Didn't really, because it wasn't part of um, my life growing up.
Right.
And certainly not college life and those things. But upon arrival, especially when you started, or when I started gaining uh, leadership positions and promotions, it's tough.
Mhm.
You, as a black woman in the military, the lens that you are viewed in, it is so much different than everyone else,
Okay.
even black males, because they can be seen as strength, for lack of a better word. Black women are normally lumped up into different areas of military service because of an overarching stigma that goes along with that, of what your performance is going to be. And then I've actually had people tell me, "Oh, you think that you're gonna, you know, at some point you're gonna have to do this, and you're not gonna be able to be pretty."
Okay, well, they don't know you.
They don't know at all.
They don't
But
know you at all. That's not gonna not know.
no, but you have to be twice as good as everyone else. So even with the mental health, um, again, that was another reason that sways you. But physically, um, there's a deterrent to being seen as weak. Um, so I mean, I can remember going to runs and having knee issues and having a knee brace on, and having command look at me like, what is going on here, and taking it off and running 6 miles because
Okay. You
it's
lost
frowned upon, because you have to be on point all the time.
Mhm.
Now, don't get me wrong, most of us perform and excel at what we do. And I give kudos to all of my female service members. But the lens that is placed upon us inherently is harsh,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it causes many of us, to struggle with a lot. Being parents, being, and a lot of us are single parents. Um, that plays a lot into it as well. This overarching, I've never really understood it. Thought that even because you're a mother is going to take away from your ability to lead, or for your ability to perform at your, peak or your optimal level. What is that going to take away from you in this career? Um, is not an easy thing to do. Um, it takes a lot of sisterhood,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of mentoring, a lot of tenacity, and I guess in audacity in some instances, to put yourself there, and to perform well and excel. And it's just, for me, I would always think that when we talk about the whole breakdown, and getting everyone to the same level, that once you reach that pinnacle, then you would be viewed and your performance would be weighed in the same light. And it's just not. It's not. Um, it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. But I will give kudos to my sisters, because we excel, and we excel well. We
And
excel
so
well.
I purposely didn't ask you a whole lot about like how deployment, because I think that would have just taken up all our time. But there's a couple of things that I think plays a big part in the mental health, and then you can just either agree or disagree. I think, of course, race, but I think, and these things are not just specific to the military. They're just all of us in life. Race, gender, sexual orientation, your financial status, your level of support from your community, from your family, your intellect or intellectual ability. I think all of those things play a part in whether or not, like how your mental health will be affected in any job, and then more specifically for the military.
That all of those dynamics play a role in your mental health overall, and that's outside of the military, but especially in the military, and especially during deployment, as you chronicled in your list, right? Those areas, attributes, familial support, big key to what your mental stability is going to be when you get there. Your experience prior to is going to play a role in that. Again, your finances, that weighs heavily on everybody, and it is even the more importance, or a critical aspect, when you're deployed, because you are now supporting someone from a
Mhm.
war zone, um, and trying to ensure that you're stable, as well as those family members, those people that are depending on you. um I will definitely say, um and this may not be what people want to hear, but intellect does play a lot in that, because it allows you to research, to understand, and to have the wherewithal to network in
Mhm.
some areas where you can get more support than those that don't know or don't have the resources to do so. And that is crucial to your mental health and stability while you are deployed. Deployment is no one's friend. It is a tough time. My last deployment was very, very hard. But my father passed. It was a rough time. Just even a thought, and some of us, we all have our different experiences, but the overall theme is staying alive and
Right.
coming back home. You know, so anxiety, um, all of those things play into it, and then there are things that happen during deployment on bases that are not talked about.
And
Um,
we're not doing it today because of time. So I don't want to cut you off, but I want us to leave on a positive note. And so I
okay,
often will say I don't give advice because people don't take advice. But I want you to give advice. I'm stepping outside of my own advice of not giving advice. For those
okay,
people who are active duty, reserve, veterans, military associated, even spot, what would you say as far as your mental health, some takeaways, some things that they can do if they need help to get help?
okay. So, well, here's my advice: get help. I don't care what the stigma is. Talk to someone, right? Um, if you don't feel comfortable, or you don't have a friend, you don't have an outlet, there are avenues for you to utilize, but get some help. Coping mechanism, your ideal of coping does not remove the problem. Once you get back out of that drunk stupor or whatever you did to soothe yourself at that moment, it's only momentary. You have to get down to what is causing the problem in order to get over it. Now, here is the issue. This is a lifetime experience. What happened to you, what got you in this place, is not instantaneous, and your treatment won't be. But it can get better with time. It gets better with addressing it. You cannot fix what you are unwilling to face. That is my key. Cannot fix what you are unwilling to face. You have to be able to face it, and then you can try to fix it. It is going to take time. It is going to take effort. It is going to take energy. And it is something internal to you that you cannot fix by yourself. Go get some help.
All right. Well, we're going to end on that note. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think that we have a part two about this because
Yeah, I
we
think
did not
we
get
need
to
to.
the issue of MST, which I really think needs to be addressed. And I spoke to a friend about this probably about last week.